And then you try to ram it down our throats. I'm just speaking so you can hear me. I'm speaking in the same way that Denise spoke to me when she stood up the other meeting, right? So I'm just saying.
I missaid. I didn't mean that we decided to make him volunteer.
When did those discussions take place? Because that was not determined during the last meeting. And under the Sunshine Law, if you, yeah, and you did not determine.
So that's the answer.
You did not determine to hire him as an ordinance enforcement officer.
No, we
I would not be hired as an enforcement
You didn't
officer.
determine.
It's not called hiring because he's not going to be.
You didn't determine to have him volunteer as an ordinance enforcement officer. And then you start this meeting and you try to ram that down without any kind of public comments.
But I don't understand what your problem is. You wanted someone on the board in the town to do it.
I want you to be honest about what you're doing.
Let him talk. It's time. It's his time, so
Okay.
he gets to talk.
If you don't want to hear me talk, that's fine.
No, you're
That's
fine.
not.
You're fine.
But what others were saying about this biting you in the rear, laws can be used as weapons, right? Does anybody dispute that? Do you want me to be your ordinance enforcement officer? You think I can't go and find some things wrong with your property? And also, I think it's wrong that people are voting on things that directly benefit their property. How many people on the board benefited from that ordinance being amended today, with the forested land being exempt? And you voted on that.
And I stated at the last meeting, I self-reported, this affects me. The reason I disclosed that is because I think it's important to do. I also didn't want to name names of other people who weren't in the room. I don't think it's good to talk about people when they're not there. So I'm not ashamed that I
Voted on something that benefited you?
I'm a member of the community.
Yeah, but that is an ordinance that you were directly affected by. And you
I
voted
don't want to take up your 3 minutes, so go ahead.
you voted to amend that. So, I just think that's, there's some shady things going on here. And I don't
Shaded
trust
out
you.
here in the sun, you see him. I just don't get that.
Well, when was it discussed that he was going to be volunteer as the ordinance enforcement officer? When was that discussed?
I was speaking to whether I disclosed that I would benefit. So you're jumping subjects to see.
But just because you disclose it doesn't mean that
it's not happening in the shade, in the dark. If I say it publicly at a meeting.
But some of the things are happening in the dark.
Yeah, but my response was to when you were saying that I
And
didn't
I'm speaking more
disclose.
generally. But when was it discussed that he was going to volunteer for that position?
He mentioned in the last meeting that he had considered volunteering, but he did not know if he was able to perform the duties of the enforcement officer.
Exactly.
So if I go back and watch that tape, it's not going to have you deciding that we don't need an ordinance enforcement officer at this time.
Table it.
It's going to say that we table the discussion.
That's right.
At this
that
time.
you don't need an ordinance enforcement officer at this time.
It's saying that we table the discussion of hiring an enforcement officer.
All right.
At the last meeting.
You tabled it. Okay.
Can I ask one more favor? I wish you all a Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Thanksgiving, and I'll see you all next April, May, June, whenever I get back. Thank you for everything y'all do. And I don't expect no Christmas card, Denise. Thank you.
Bye, Don.
Be safe, Don.
Huh?
Not till the 6th.
No.
He's got to vote.
At the last meeting, each of you were asked if you thought an enforcement officer was needed. Patty was the only one that said that she thought an enforcement officer was needed. Everybody else said no, they didn't think so. Yes.
I did not say no, I don't think so. I said that I did not know that that was the exact thing that needed to happen, but that we needed somebody to enforce the ordinances.
And Natalie, I thought it was interesting that the only thing that you could see is, I'm sorry.
So if it was tabled, why all of a sudden was it back on the agenda right at the first of the meeting? And I don't have a problem with David at all. But my problem is that all of a sudden, bam, right at the top of the meeting, you said this and it was tabled
And
at
that
the
was
end of the
poor
last
ju-
meeting.
Poor judgment on my part. I admit that.
Well,
I'm
it was
sorry.
tabled,
I
so
shouldn't have
therefore
said it
I
like
thought-
that. I just thought you guys would be overjoyed that somebody on the board in the town was volunteered to do it. It wasn't going to cost any money. Honestly, that's why I said it, because I thought it would make you guys happy. You wanted somebody
That's fine.
on the board in
That's-
town and no money. That was I honestly really thought that. I thought that's what they want. They'll be happy.
Well,
gave
we
them
was
something
going
to
along
do.
with what was done at the last meeting
I
that was
understand
stated,
that now.
okay?
This time I won't do that.
That should be brought up for more
Yeah,
discussion.
I do. I apologize. If that makes you think it was a falsehood, I am very sorry, but I was just trying to make people happy. Yes.
Sue, ladies before gentlemen.
Oh, I didn't know.
I just heard, and I can't remember who said it, but that there are maybe other alternatives. Did someone say 4 alternatives? Well, I haven't heard of
I
it.
said that.
Can anybody spell out the 4 alternatives? The first one being Dave volunteers. Who knows
Jen.
what the other alternatives are? Or
Jan suggested
Well,
that it just be brought to the board.
Right, the
As a whole.
proposal, and
The board
and
as a
Jan
whole.
actually represented the proposal.
And I suppose the other two was that we hired an enforcement officer, one of them, I don't know.
No,
You had some
I
others
did,
too.
I presented 2 more.
Well, I had an idea of maybe a volunteer of 3, including someone from the board, someone just from the community at large, someone maybe from Betterment, to serve as that initial
Team kind of thing.
determiner. Is there an infraction? Let's actually talk to this person. How can we help you? I don't know exactly how Betterment goes about it, but that approach really works. And it is certainly done with the homeowner's consent, rather than these fears that arise of being informed by letter and the threat is that you will go to court if you don't comply. Let it be more a community working together. The panel of 3 would then kind of take the personalities out of it. And if I had a complaint the way my neighbor kept his yard, I could tell one of my 3 committee people, they could investigate it, and then if it was an issue, they could address it with the board and let the board help work out the problem, however is best for everybody involved. It just seemed like the volunteer idea is a very good idea, because I think a lot of concern is about just paying someone to do this, and who knows what you get. You know, it sounds kind of like a police state. The volunteer idea, I think, is a good way to let everybody have input, and nobody feels like there's an enforcer per se. That's my.
Mr. Harley.
I want to put a little history on you here.
3 minutes.
Some people didn't like the fact that they were being taxed for the tea. So they started a revolution. That's the way this country started, because they didn't like something. And now we're at a point in the federal and the states where the Constitution's just hanging by the thread. The big committees from the federal government are absolutely unconstitutional. I don't care what any judge has to say about it. And neither did those old guys back in when they started this revolution. And this old military guy didn't like it either. So I'm going to move out here close to Jameson, because that's where I grew up, and I had all kinds of freedom growing up. And we need to get on our feds and get our, this is a legal process by the Constitution that we have here. And if the state tries to take it over, that's illegal. Jameson has its own rulers. They vote for them. If the feds try to take it over, that's illegal too. we have more unconstitutional things that the judges overlook, that the Congress overlooks, that the Senate overlooks, and the President, of course, overlooks. And that's why we have a little inkling in our thinking that we don't like to have somebody tell us what to do. But you guys can in Jameson. That's legal by the Constitution.
Okay, anyone else who'd like to get on with this? Any Board of Trustees comments?
I just noticed that the next meeting's at 7, so we're going back to 7, or are we keeping it
I
at
just
6:30?
didn't change the agenda.
6:30?
What do you know,
I think 6:30 works good.
it is
That's my
6:30.
personal opinion.
That's a template.
Shove in the information and keep on moving.
Anyone have anything they want to say?
Trunk or treats, October 31st. It'll be rain or shine. It'll be out front. We'll have tables that people want to set up to give treats away to the goblins or whomever. And if it rains, we'll move it inside. Everybody's welcome.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Or
5 to 7.
Before we go any further, this enforcement thing, do we want to just table it till the next meeting, think about it? What do you want to do? I'm putting this, you getting this, we're going to talk about it. Are we doing it tonight? Are we gonna?
I don't think we have.
You know, you could appoint a couple of people as a subcommittee to come up with options that would maybe guide the discussion at the next meeting, that would take into account the suggestions that have been made and other things that might come to the people that you appointed as a way to have a starting point.
You could have the people vote on something, have set a time, come in and vote on this.
We're working on what the something is.
Well, it depends on what,
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, to come up with a something.
yeah. But you have that possibility available.
I would find that
I don't think you'll get very many people to come. You guys would come,
That's fine.
and
Yeah.
that's what would show up. And we already know.
Well,
what
no, for a vote, there's a lot of people
Oh,
that
you're talking about the vote?
the vote.
would come in and vote,
They
yes.
voted with their signatures already.
And there were some that
Yeah.
didn't want the enforcement officer, but they were afraid to put their signatures
I don't
in.
understand
Well,
that.
they were.
Well, people have gotten retired slashed
told
over
us
political
that.
issues in this town.
They said that they
Jim Cook
supported,
had the windows broken out of his house because of things that people didn't like.
Yeah, I mean,
They don't.
so to say that you don't understand how people are scared to speak out.
but there were several people that said that they were afraid.
Who do you want to appoint to look into this?
I want you to appoint him, Madam Chair. Or ask for volunteers. I'm not
You're gonna have volunteers.
I'll volunteer.
You're not on board.
She has
David,
volunteer.
would you be interested in checking it out? Beth?
I'm glad to help.
Okay.
in this.
I'm sorry, who's going to? I didn't hear it.
David and Beth are gonna look into options, and we will discuss it at the next meeting. And I won't open my mouth and say we hired somebody, okay? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll
Second.